Hello and welcome to April's Tips and Tricks call. My name is Tim Sessions, the Director of Client Services here at Audience. I had to take a deep breath to make sure I said that right. So hopefully you've seen the news. We'll talk a little bit about that on this call. But yes, Aptivada is now Audience. So I'm so glad you're here. We have lots to talk about today. This is going to be a little bit different tips and tricks. So definitely looking for your feedback in the comments. Feel free to give us some chats and information there. But as we jump into things, you should notice that we have the Q&A section up available for you to ask questions there. And that's where I encourage you to ask all questions, is in the Q&A panel. I have Ryan from my team standing by. You all know and love Ryan. If you've ever chatted in and asked for help or any advice, Ryan is the guy. So be sure to throw any questions in the Q&A panel, any comments or feedback or observations, throw those in the chat. So here's our agenda for today. Of course, we have our Aptivada sweepstakes where we give away $100 to Amazon. And speaking of chat, you should see that in the chat shortly. So feel free to click that link. While we go over the agenda, quickly fill out the entry form so that we can award a winner at the end of this call. You have to be present to win, so be sure to stick around. Also, at the end of this webinar, we do send out a survey. We'd love to have your feedback on how we did. We take a look at those replies and answers and try to adjust to better accommodate your needs and so we're not taking advantage of your busy days. And of course, what I mentioned at the top of this, Aptivada is now Audience. We'll jump into a quick update and then talk about first-party data. You're going to hear us focus a lot on that for the remainder of the year. So in case you missed it, Aptivada is now Audience. So wanted to show you the cool little GIF that we came up with, our new logo. And if you catch me, I should have a Aptivada jar. Every time I say Aptivada, I have to add a penny to it on this call. So feel free to call me out if I accidentally say Aptivada. All right, before we jump into the presentation, I just wanted to point out a quick update on one of our form fields. If you've already entered our sweepstakes for today, you'll notice there was a form field that says, what time is it where you are? That is a new form field, or in addition to an existing form field. Actually, we had the input date form field under the input fields, but now you can actually select the format of hours, minutes, and AM, PM. So let's say you had a promotion where you're asking for the date and time. You would have to create two separate fields for that, one for the date, one for the time, where people can input certain days and times. A use case for this that I've seen and I think is really cool is a group down in Arizona will ask when it hits 100 and something degrees, so what day and what time exactly will it hit. The person with the closest guess win some money or prizes. So be thinking of different ways that you can use this date and time field. We know it's a small addition, but anytime we have something to announce, I am sure to bring it up here. All right, let's talk about first, second, and third party data. Like I mentioned, you're going to hear us talk a lot about this as part of our brand and name change. It's something that we've been facilitating for the past 10 years and as a company, and now it's time to focus on that. But before we talk about first party data, which is our primary focus, it helps to understand what third party and second party data is, so you know where it's coming from and how it's collected. So third party data is data that's collected by a third party source that doesn't have a direct relationship with the consumer. So it's collected through cookies, pixels, and other aggregators as people travel the web. I think we're all familiar with that. Every time we visit a new site, there's a pop-up on it that gets in our way that says this site requires cookies. Would you like to accept? You know, it's part of some legislation and changes in privacy that a lot of websites make sure that they are trying to accommodate. So people are volunteering that they give that site permission to collect information on that. However, there's going to be changes to that. So it's important to pay attention. You know, we're going to see a lot of sunsetting of cookies and different browsers. You know, pretty much fighting against this collection method because as we move into the coming years, you know, privacy is becoming more and more important. We hear about it every single day in the news, on social media, and everybody wants their data back. And so third-party data might be a source that will not quickly, but eventually most likely be cut off. One of the disadvantages to third-party data is that it doesn't always paint a clear picture of who your audience is because it's aggregated from across various sites. I could visit one site that is a sporting goods site, and then I move on to the next site, and maybe I'm interested in sports cars, and then the next site I'm interested in a credit card application or something along those lines. And that sporting goods site has no idea of my other interests. And so all they know is that I visited their site and I could retarget with, you know, sporting goods advertisements or something like that. But there's so much more about me that third-party data does not share with the companies who are managing these sites. Second-party data is a relatively new term. It's data collected via first-party methods but sold to another party. It does come direct from a source, so directly from a collection method, but individuals who acquire second-party data don't own it. And as I was putting these slides together, it dawned on me that it's a lot like leasing farmland. It will, I grew up in a small town, Idaho, so this one's easy for me to understand, but a lot of the farmers, a lot of the potato farmers there did not own their land, but they were able to use it to accomplish their goal of growing potatoes and making profits that way. So second-party data is similar in that sense. It definitely paints a clearer picture of the audience, and it's obviously more reliable than third-party data, but a use case for second-party data is, you know, you're a small company and maybe you need to piggyback off of a site that has already collected that data, and that data is coming directly from the source versus some aggregate site that you're just buying a batch of data like third-party data sites add. And lastly, well, most importantly, I should say, is first-party data. That is data that you collect and you own. It's the most valuable data because it's yours, you know where it comes from, and you've facilitated the collection of that information. So in our case, you can collect it through contests, surveys, forms, through social audiences, and so forth. This is, again, I just want to reemphasize, this is information that you own and is yours to use. Now, if you visited our site, well, yeah, I guess I kind of jumped the gun on my slide here, but why is first-party data so important? You know where it came from. It's relatively easy to collect and manage. The privacy concerns are minimal. Going back to what I said about privacy, people are more and more concerned about that. So because I voluntarily gave my information to a site, I'm less worried about how that site got my information. It can be activated to target your audience directly, and it's what your audience wants you to know about them. So I think just looking at a few of these bullet points, and there's so many more, you can see why it's important and how it's valuable. So if you visit our new site, it's audience.io. Now, as we're navigating this brand change and name change, you're going to see some areas where Aptivada might still pop up. After being a company for over a decade, the name Aptivada is far and wide and all over our products. So we're making sure that we're getting those updated. But our website now is audience.io. And when you hit that page, you see this phrase right at the very start: grow, enrich, and activate your first party data. So that's our collective goal with all of you as our partners, is to grow and enrich and activate your first party data. Again, that data that you own. So let's break this down just a little bit. First of all, you want to grow your audience, and that's exactly what you're doing right now. Maybe you're new here at Audience, or you've been here for a very long time. Every campaign, every promotion that you run is you accomplishing that first goal of growing your audience. You can build campaigns and you can give a value proposition by incentivizing that information that you want to collect from your audience. Something to ask yourself as you're building out these promotions, or giving something away or providing a value to your consumers, is, would I volunteer my info for this? What is that value proposition to your audience to be able to grow your audience? Obviously, the idea here is to find new users, which we do track, and you can see in the metrics of any campaign that you run. And so really focus on that, really see how your audience is growing through the different types of campaigns that you are running. Now, you don't necessarily always have to be giving something away. You can provide added value through telling your audience a little bit more about newsletter subscriptions, or what they can expect in SMS type promotions. If you have a SMS service, you can give a preview of what they can expect on your social media platforms. Basically, just giving that value to your consumers for giving out their information to you. So keep that question in mind. Would I volunteer my info for this? And hopefully that can help shape the types of campaigns that you're running. So you've grown your audience and you continue to grow your audience. Now it's time to enrich. In many cases, first name, last name, email addresses, that's not enough. That only tells you a tiny bit of the picture. It tells you almost as much as just walking by somebody on the street and observing their physical appearance. There's so much more to the story of that individual. So keeping in mind the question of, would I give up my info for this? Create campaigns to learn more about your audience, incentivize further actions. We obviously have bonus entries on any types of sweepstakes or giveaways, but maybe signing up for a newsletter or a SMS text campaign that you may be running should give them discount codes, free shipping, free information that's important to your audience and to your consumers. You can ask yourself another question. What don't I know about my audience yet? And you can use user base to see the gaps in data and create campaigns that fill them in. So maybe you want to know where your audience lives and you haven't been collecting zip codes. We'll make sure every promotion or campaign that you have running in the future allows your users to input their zip code, so you can get an idea of where your audience lives. There's going to be the conversations that a lot of you resellers have with your customers of, what kind of information can you provide them through our integrations, or passing some of this first party data onto them. I always use this example because to me it's the most easy to understand, but if you're doing anything in the finance world, getting a better understanding of what your financial statuses are of your audience, and being able to give that understand that information, and then also give that to your partners in these types of promotions. So again, first name, last name, and email address is maybe great for a bank or financial institution to have to send out emails, but maybe there's some targeted information that they would like to have for certain demographics and certain characteristics of your audience. And that gives us, that leads us into the activate portion of that phrase that's right on audience.io. So pretty easy flow chart here. You have your audience campaign collecting first party data. This is how you activate it. You make sure that it's flowing into your CRM. You make sure that people are signing up for your SMS platforms. You make sure that they're subscribing to your email lists. You make sure that they are following your social accounts. This can all be done through any sort of campaign in audience. And if you are not activating your audience, then you're essentially leaving money, leaving marketing efforts on the table. So as you can see, running these audience campaigns, collecting this first party data should always be working for you and activated and entering into your CRMs, your SMS platforms, email lists, social accounts. Now, these four, you're not limited to just these four. It's just what I came up with on the fly. There might be several other areas that are important to you where you want to be able to activate this first party data. Some of you might know and recognize this guy. This is the co-founder of Aptivada, Creighton Green. I saw this tweet from him a few weeks ago, and I think he was kind of mulling over the name change of Aptivada to Audience and what our focus is going to be moving forward, and what we hope to convey that focus, to you. He says, "Hey marketers, deliver a clear value exchange for customers' data. I'll tell you more about me, but what's in it for me?" So Creighton is speaking from a consumer standpoint. Make it a clear picture of what's in it for your audience, for them providing that information. I believe this tweet sums up everything that we just talked about, and the attitude of what your consumers should expect. All right, so that was a crash course on first party data, what Aptivada's focus, or oh my gosh, Audience's focus is going to be moving forward. The whole goal of this tips and tricks was just to get your wheels turning, to better understand some of the messaging that you'll be seeing coming from us moving forward, whether it's these tips and tricks calls, the digital sales training calls, any sort of marketing material that we send out, templates we create. We're going to be focusing on these collective goals to grow, enrich, and activate your audience. So if there are no questions or comments, go ahead and take about 15, 30 seconds and to enter the promotion if you haven't already. And of course, what we do is we'll pick a winner live here in the next couple of minutes, and we will go ahead and get you your money to the winner. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.